Max Verstappen's escalating radio exchanges and biting post-race criticism at the Hungarian Grand Prix exposed the cracks emerging between himself and Red Bull as a seemingly straightforward 2024 Formula One title charge all of a sudden becomes strained. But it's not that Verstappen could realistically become and will become champion. It's how Verstappen, for the first time since 2021, is facing a tough competition, and a competition that won't back down, which might prove to be the end for Red Bull's domination. Verstappen's message to his critics to all F off seemed inevitable after an increasingly tense and dramatic race for the world champion. However, his team also found themselves under fire for the second time in 3 races. Red Bull faced criticism from Verstappen after his contentious battle with Lando Norris at the Austrian Grand Prix a few weeks ago, and he let his frustrations out again in Hungary.
Did you leave the car set?
You were behind at the apex, mate.
During the race, his typically blunt exchanges with his race engineer Giampiero Lambiase reached new heights, leading people to brand their relationship like the one of a married couple. But all jokes aside, this went beyond the usual frustration of a pushy world champion dealing with a race win slipping away, as it reflected a broader sense of annoyance. Verstappen criticized Red Bull's strategy, saying it put me on the back foot throughout the Grand Prix. He also gave a damning verdict on the team's biggest upgrade of the year and repeatedly warned over the weekend that he believes some inside Red Bull are not on the same wavelength in understanding the severity of the situation. Are these warning shots? This felt more like repeated volleys of friendly fire. It has become increasingly clear this year that Verstappen carries real frustration over Red Bull's car development, whether it's feeling unheard about its ride quality issues or becoming vulnerable as rival teams improve their cars at a faster rate. And it felt like this was not the result of just Hungary. It felt like something has been brewing up here for quite a while, perhaps since Barcelona. Verstappen never takes defeats well, but this was particularly bad, precisely because it was about more than just one tricky weekend. This only extends the feeling of a rift in the team that we see emerging at times. Verstappen is usually performing at a very high level, and has previously warned that he's effectively papering over the cracks. Red Bull sees things differently. When the car hasn't been perfect, the team has still executed strategies and pit stops brilliantly. This, along with Verstappen's excellent driving, has contributed to scoring victories when they might have only secured seconds or thirds. No doubt this was at the forefront of some minds when Verstappen criticized Red Bull's strategy throughout the Grand Prix. His sharp response, filled with profanity, which we cannot say here for obvious reasons, to Lambiase's instructions to bring his tires in gently, was the cherry on top, and once again proved that Verstappen is above all a driver that races for himself first, and only then for the team. It has also become undeniable that Verstappen has reservations about his team that weren't there a few months ago. That might seem over the top for a driver who leads the World Championship by 76 points, especially when Red Bull is still 51 points clear in the constructors' standings. But such an attitude is what Verstappen is afraid of. Red Bull's in a dogfight, and Verstappen implied some people in the team don't seem to realize it. Team principal Christian Horner politely refuted that as he sidestepped various questions about the anger Verstappen exhibited on Sunday and the tension it conveyed. And the British team principal also said that they will talk about this in the next few days. Max was frustrated, which you can understand, explained Horner when asked whether Verstappen went over the top with his comments on the radio. He has a very direct line of communication with his engineer. That's something that they'll discuss between the two of them. Whether Red Bull agrees or not, Verstappen's warnings are not without foundation. He has long been critical of the car's limitations. This wasn't a problem while Red Bull had a big performance advantage, but it's more costly now that the opposition is closed in. By sticking with the car's mechanical platform that Verstappen has raised concerns over, Red Bull might have imposed a lower aerodynamic development ceiling on itself. This could be why others are finding bigger gains now. The more Verstappen feels Red Bull is asking of him, the more it risks lighting a fuse that seems to be getting shorter. There are past examples, as recently as Austria 3 weeks ago, of Verstappen losing at least some sense of control in the Grand Prix when the race is slipping away from him. This will only be exacerbated when Verstappen is in the middle of a frustrating weekend, and even more so during a frustrating run of races. This Grand Prix therefore seemed destined to unfold into something explosive, and there was a sense of nostalgia, in a bad way, that the extraordinary crescendo would come with Verstappen's old sparring partner, Lewis Hamilton. Surprisingly, Horner even defended Lewis and not his driver in the wake of the racing incident. It just didn't work out for us today. We tried giving an overlap to give him the pace, but there's plenty for us to look at after the race to understand what we could have done better, he told Sky Sports. Lots to take out of the race, and we'll come back in a week's time. I would say a racing incident, to be honest with you. I would be disappointed if anything was to come of that. Verstappen's ill-judged lunge on Hamilton into Turn 1, in which the Red Bull locked its front brakes and vaulted over the Mercedes as it took what the stewards confirmed through data was its normal line into the corner, represented a driver losing his cool. Verstappen felt differently. He insisted it was Hamilton's car moving to the right that caused him to lock up in avoidance, and it was the suggestions that critics feel he was just frustrated that led to Verstappen inviting them to F off. What's funny is that a driver that was by far the biggest talking point before the race, Sergio Perez, went unnoticed today as he even finished in points starting from P16 and at least extended his Red Bull stay for one more race. Max's frustration seems to have reached a boiling point now, and unfortunately it doesn't bring out his best. The only explanation there could be the combination of all things coming together over the past couple of months and the toll it is taking. The Horner saga and the damage it did to the team in relationship with Yas and the Horner-Marko dispute, Newey leaving, the fact that they've lost their major advantage in a ridiculously short amount of races. There's likely a lot going on behind closed doors, but Max publicly questioning whether some members of the team are taking this seriously enough was perhaps not classy, but telling. Look, an F1 driver venting is not an unusual thing, but Verstappen should not speak in such a degrading manner to his team on the radio in public. Sure, the team made mistakes, and Max was under tremendous pressure to overcome 2 undercuts, but still he should treat the team with respect. It is a team game in the end, and yes, he is the most important player in the team, but still it would be good to see some genuine class from him also. There is a summer break after Spa, and I do believe that everyone in Red Bull is eagerly waiting for it because the way things are going with McLaren, despite their self-induced drama, which we talked about in our previous video, Red Bull will have an extremely hard time defending their constructors' title. What do you think will come off of Verstappen's antics? Let us know down in the comments below, and we will see you in the next video.